welcome back to another legendary tier list video where today we're going to move over to Risk of Rain 2 where we will be rating all 57 monsters. But we are rating these monsters purely based on how attractive they are. The criteria of attractiveness in this video is going to be determined by looks, personality, traits, characteristics, and the love in their hearts. Now, this video is, it's not a smash or pass list. It's not explicit. It is more pure in nature than that. Looks are a factor in this, and sometimes looks will be the major qualifying factor in where I rank them. But again, this is not going to be a smash or pass tier list or something like that. Now, let's hop right into it and see who is marriage material and who is impossible to love. All right, so here we are at the tier list where we again are going to be rating the attractiveness of all 57 Risk of Rain 2 monsters. So let's go ahead and get started. We have the Alloy Vulture, who has a hardened body and super sharp claws. You know, I feel like that's a little bit too difficult to hug, and it seems a little bit difficult to find the Alloy Vulture attractive, mainly due to their looks being that of an actual vulture. So we're going to start them off. We're going to put them right dead center. We're going to put them in the C tier. Next up, we have the Alpha Construct, which, I mean, all they do is they're a big old triangle, and they sit there, and they don't do anything. I feel like they don't understand the concept of love, so that's going to be an F tier. They don't really do much. I don't find that very attractive. I don't think anyone really finds that very attractive. Moving on, we have the Beetle. Now, they apparently like to walk around like a gorilla, and they are very territorial. I see that as a positive, but again, they may be too territorial. They may not allow you to bring in neighbors or friends. All they know is your children and you as their lover. So that may be a downside to that. We're gonna go ahead and throw the Beetle in the B tier. Now for the other companion, we have the Beetle Guard. Now they're higher in social status compared to that of the Beetle, so that's a plus. And they have a better physique, I feel like, than the normal Beetle. So they'd be an even better protector than the Beetle. They also have pretty big muscles that they can like destroy enemies or something like that, but they could also maybe be gentle, give you a nice hug, tell you you're the best. So we're gonna go ahead and throw the Beetle Guard all the way up to the S tier. Congratulations, Beetle Guard, you are the first. You are marriage material. Up next, we have the Bighorn Bison, and the main thing is they just have a big old pelt that's apparently expensive, and they get hunted all the time, just like regular old bison. Then again, they're great huggers for that reason alone. I bet they warm you up like nobody's business. We're gonna go ahead and move them up into the A tier. Up next, we have Blind Pest. Moving on, we have the Blind Vermin. Now, they're a bit different compared to a lot of the creatures because they're big and smelly, and they're blind, and they leave a trail of excrement wherever they go. I feel like that's mainly used for their movement and stuff like that because they rely on hearing and smell. But apparently, according to the lore, they are ridiculous in smell, and they just stink up the place so badly. So, sorry, Blind Vermin. Due to that reason, we're going to go ahead and throw you down into the D tier. You're still lovable. Maybe if someone doesn't have a sense of smell, or they're like Krillin and have no nose, they can just learn to love you, but otherwise you're going to be hard-pressed to find a lover, Blind Vermin, I'm sorry. Moving on, we have the Brass Contraption. Now, to me, they aren't too much different in terms of maybe physique or personality and stuff like that compared to the Alpha Construct. Now, the big plus that the Brass Contraption has over the Alpha Construct is it at least is able to move around. So, you know, maybe you could take it down on a long trip or a long walk along the beach. I'm not too sure, but at least you can move around with it. So it's going to go up one tier above the Alpha Construct. We're going to throw that into the E tier. Moving on, we have the Clay Apothecary. Now, the main thing that I see that's like their main pro is they throw things, so they got hands. Maybe you could do some hand holding. So for that reason and that reason alone, we're going to move them to the B tier. You can do some pretty explicit things with hand holding. Now moving on, we have the Clay Templar. Now they're a bit different than the Apothecary to me. They're more humanoid that could also do hand holding. So for that reason, you know, they got a good height, they got a good posture, stuff like that. We're gonna move them up a tier above the Apothecary, and we're gonna move them into the A tier. Now we have the Elder Lemurian. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm not too sure, to be honest. But the entire time you're with them, they breathe too much fire. I feel like they're very clumsy, and they got a very front-heavy footstep. You know, it's very loud. They shake your screen and stuff like that. They may be a bit too tall for us just average height people. I feel like they'd be a bull in a china shop. I think it'd be pretty hard to do stuff like take them out for dinner or stuff like that. So, you know, they got a good physique and stuff like that going on. We're going to put them with the Apothecary. We're going to put them into the B tier. Moving on, we have the middle of the three slimes in terms of size. We have the Geep, where I feel like they're medium-sized, which is not a good thing because they're a bit too big to hug and a bit too small to be encompassed by. Stuff like that. I'm going to go ahead and move them a little bit lower. I'm going to move them down into the D tier. They're just a bit too awkward in size and stuff like that. Now we have the smallest of the three slimes. We have the Gip. So again, this one is smaller, so it's more huggable than the Geep. And I feel like it's they're more on the cute scale than the hot scale, but that's still attractive. We'll move them into the C tier. Move them up one above the Geep due to that. Now we have the Greater Wisp, which is just a floating mask on fire, pretty much. Maybe you could find something to do with that. I think you'll be a little bit hard-pressed. It's hard to do anything with that, in my opinion. We're going to move them into the E tier. They may understand the concept of love. I think you can love them, but you'll be hard-pressed. And now we have the biggest of the three slimes. We have the Gup, which, again, compared to the Geep, you have a huge size, which, again, you can maybe climb on top of. It'll be like a big old beanbag or something like that. They also, according to the lore, smell like strawberries and other fruits. So they smell good. They may be relaxing or something to that sense. We're going to move them into the B tier. Up next, we have a hermit crab. The top of it, what it's actually like inside of, it's a bit too phallic, a bit too vulgar. It's just a big old crab. It's hard to love. We're going to throw it into the E tier. Now we have the Imp, which, according to SpongeBob, is... Now, their personality, I feel like they got a little bit of a temper, so they don't make it quite all the way to the S tier due to their quote-unquote bad personality. We're going to put them in the A tier. So now I feel like we have one of the more difficult monsters to rate. We have the jellyfish. It's just a big old jellyfish. There's not a lot going for it. It's probably not too attractive, but it does have an electric personality. So we'll put that into the C tier. Moving on, we have the larva. They contain bile sacs that I feel like are a little bit too easy to explode, and those bile sacs are extremely acidic. You can't really hug them. You can't really do anything with them. I feel like their sole purpose is to produce offspring, and that's not what we're about here on this channel, right? We're trying to find the attractiveness of it. So I'm sorry for that, Mr. Larva, but you will be moved into the F tier. Now we have the normal, again, I'm sorry if I mispronounced this, Lemurian, I'm not too sure how to pronounce that, where they are warm-blooded compared to actual lizards that are cold-blooded, and they also have the ability to sing tunes in their own language, so you can get a good song. You may not understand what they're saying, but, you know, we like foreign songs, everyone does. So, for that reason, and then again, they're anthropomorphic, they're easy to hug, you can hold hands, you can do a lot of things with. Mr. Lemurian makes it all the way up to the S tier. I feel like they are straight marriage material. Moving on, we have the Lesser Wisp, which again has the same issues as the greater counterpart, where I don't know what you could really do with them, but they at least are smaller and probably more gentle in nature compared to that of the greater version. So the Lesser Wisp can move up a tier at least into the D tier. Maybe you could figure out something to do with it. I'm not too sure. It's just a mask to me. Now we move on to the Lunar Chimeras. The first one is going to be the Exploder, where they're just a big old ball with spider-like appendages kind of coming out of it. They're small and fragile. They explode on death. I feel like that's too risky to start a family with. You got to think about the kids. So, Lunar Chimera, I'm afraid it's impossible to love you. I'm going to go ahead and throw you into the F tier. Sorry, Exploder. Now, the second one of the Lunar Chimeras, we have the Golem, where it's hard, again, to love something like this. Maybe you can figure something out. Mainly due to the lore stating that it doesn't really have a soul, so that makes it harder to love. But, it does have high speeds and twin cannons. So, maybe you could figure something out with that? Maybe you're more into the destructive qualities. Maybe you find that attractive. You know, a lot of people say, let me be the person that ruins your life. The Lunar Chimera Golem is for you. So, we will move that. It's going to go a little bit higher than the Exploder. It's going to go into the D tier. Lastly, of the Lunar Chimeras, we have the Wisp, where it does have a soul. So, you know, you could talk about your feelings with it at least. It does have feeble combat skills, again, according to the lore. So, it needs protection and love. And a lot of people like those qualities, where you are the protector of the family. That's pretty high up there in attractiveness to me. So, we're going to go ahead and throw the Lunar Chimera Wisp in the highest tier of the 3 Lunar Chimeras into the B tier. Moving on, we now have the Mini Mushroom, where it does have small, cute little legs. It kind of just roams around and waddles on its own. Again, we're on the cute side more than the hot side. So it looks adorable doing so, in my opinion. The negative side is it does spray spores once approached. So it's kind of hard to do anything with but just observe it. Maybe if you were into it, you'd go on a date with it. But again, it's just kind of hard to do if you're a big distance away from it. So we're going to go ahead and move it into the C tier. Moving on, we now have an interesting one, in my opinion. We have the Parent, where it's interesting because it does have pretty big muscles. You know, that's a plus. It's anthropomorphic, so that's a plus for most things. But it has no eyes. It just has a big old hole. I need some eyes to stare deep into. You know, I gotta connect with them, and that's just lacking. It doesn't have anything to connect with. I feel like it's just gonna beat you up or something. So it's lovable. Yes, maybe you're into that kind of thing, but it's not super lovable. It's gonna go into the C tier. It's not the most attractive. It's not the least attractive. It's just kind of in the middle. Now we have a difficult one to love. I feel like we have the Soulless Probe, where it's small and adorable in size. It's going to be cold and metallic if you give it a big old hug. It would be in the F tier. It would be basically unlovable to me. It's kind of a pet love sort of deal. Thanks, Omni-Man. That's the only thing keeping it from the F tier to me. In the lore, it says 12,002. Do you love them too? My answer is basically no. And now we have the Stone Golem, where I feel like we have the same issue as the Parent, where I want to stare deep into their eyes. They're anthropomorphic, they're bulky, muscly, whatever you want to consider it. But if I try to stare deep into the Stone Golem's eyeball laser thing, it's just going to blow me up with a laser and kill me. So it's going to go a tier lower than the Parent. We're going to move it into the B tier. Now here's one that I am thoroughly confused by and therefore not attracted to in the least. We have the Void Barnacle. It's got too many eyes, too many appendages, too difficult to understand. It lives in the infinite void, and therefore I feel like it's very difficult to find a place to live together if you wanted to live in the void with them. So, for that reason, Void Barnacle is going to go in the lowest tier. I feel like that's impossible to love. Move it into the F tier. It's just not attractive at all. Second up on the Void family class, we have the Void Jailer, where they're an anthropomorphic lobster. That's all they really look like. But it feels like they kind of work out, you know, maybe they'll try and stay in shape to impress you or something along those lines. It doesn't make it all the way to the F tier. It's going to go up a little bit. We're going to put it into the B tier. And then finally, of the Void family, we have the Void Reaver. The best thing about them is they can communicate telepathically, again, according to the lore. You can sit there, you can have some late night conversations around a campfire, or maybe like you got a couple of twin beds and you're like talking to each other, trying to sleep, but you can't sleep, and it's late up night, and you can just talk about your feelings or whatever you want to. So they're going to rank the highest of the Void family. We're going to move them into the A tier. So that's it for the normal monsters. Again, if you have any issues, comments, or concerns, leave a comment below. It's always fun to discuss with y'all what y'all think of this tier list, or any tier list I make. Check out the other videos. But now we're going to move on into the bosses. I feel like the bosses are very polarizing. compared to normal monsters. There's some that are super attractive and some that are not attractive at all. There's not too many in the middle. We'll see. So first up, we have the Beetle Queen. Great figure. They keep up with themselves. They're a single mom. They're a big hunter, so they can take care of them and their children. And they spray pheromones all over the place. So, maybe it's a good smelling pheromone. Again, you got a nice, great figure, single mom. She has everything she needs to move it all the way to the S tier. Congratulations, Beetle Queen. Now on the opposite side, we have the Clay Dune Strider, which to me, it's just a big old clay pot with tar tendrils just sticking out of it. It's some sort of weird forbidden love. It's forbidden for me, therefore it's impossible to love. We're gonna throw the Clay Dune Strider into the F tier. Now, with the same family class as the parent, we have the grandparent. I feel like the grandparent's even more difficult to find attractive compared to that of the parent, mainly due to their head looking like they got the whole just stretched out into a ring. It doesn't even have a face to look at, in my opinion. It's just kind of strange looking. I'm gonna leave it at that. We're gonna go ahead and throw the grandparent. You can find it somewhat attractive. It's not possible to love. Put them in the E tier. Moving on, we have the Grove Tender, which from the lore, if y'all haven't, look at the lore of the Grove Tender. I'll put a little bit of a brief part of it in the video. They are extremely wholesome, at least with the children in their garden and stuff like that. They just seem to absolutely love their children. They tell them good job and stuff like that. I think they would be an excellent parent that is extremely attractive. They got great physique. They care. That's all I need. They're going into the S tier for marriage material. They are 1000% ready to be the parent of your kids. It would be a fantastic marriage. Now we have the opposite in terms of personality with the Grove Tender. We have the Imp Overlord, which if you look at the lore, they are degrading the crap out of anyone and everything that they interact with. I'm not personally into this. Maybe there's people out there, but I'll be nice and I'll put them in the A tier for maybe people are into being degraded, but it can be your type. I know a lot of people are into that sort of thing. Moving on, we have the Magma Worm, which they apparently, at minimum, are at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, even 10 hours after death. Their eyes are symbiotes instead of actual eyes. They're a big old just snake kind of flying around. Is it impossible to love them? No. Is it difficult to love them? Yes. Are they attractive? Kinda. We'll put them in the D tier. They're not really attractive. Moving on, we have the Overloading Worm, which I feel like is even more difficult than the Magma Worm, which we just rated, to love, mainly due to the increased temperatures, blue flames compared to that of yellow flames. So I'm assuming it's quite a bit hotter in terms of temperature, not hotter in terms of attractiveness. So it's even more difficult to find attractive, in my opinion. We're going to move it a tier below the Magma Worm and throw it into the E tier. Up next, we have the Scavenger, whose tormented soul, in my opinion, they're pretty much just simply scared. They take comfort in their items. If you look at their body, I feel like that is peak physique. That is what everyone strives to be. The Scavenger moves it not quite to marriage material. Maybe you can work them up to it, but they're going to make it into the A tier. Now we have the Soulless Control Unit. This one's going to be basically impossible to love for me. They're too big. They don't really seem to understand the concept of love. They're, a singular tracked mind. If they even have a mind, they're just machinery. That's all they really seem to care about is the machinery part. So we're going to go ahead and move them into the F tier and go about our day. Now we have the Stone Titan. It's a big defender, big, tall, towering thing. It reminds me of the Iron Giant pretty much in terms of size, at least, and kind of physique. They seem to be protective, and again, that's a lot of people find that attractive. So it's not marriage material, and it's not impossible to love. Again, it's one of those ones I feel like it's in the middle. We're gonna go ahead and throw the Stone Titan into the C tier. Up next, we have the Void Devastator, which it's a being in the void, obviously. Big old clam-like creature-looking thing. Likes to cause natural disasters, which not cool, dude. Not cool at all. It's too big to live in a house with you. You'd have to find some mega warehouse if you wanted to. The only thing keeping me from throwing it into the impossible to love tier is the color scheme of it. It's a beautiful color scheme. So it's got a little bit of the looks going for it. We're gonna go ahead and move that into the E tier. Now we have the Wandering Vagrant, which is just a beautiful large jellyfish. Nice color scheme again. It also, like the other normal jellyfish, has an even more electric personality. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Haha, haha, hee 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 hee. They got a bit of a nomadic personality, so if you wanted to, you could take the Wandering Vagrant out and go see parks or the beach or something like that. Go to Yellowstone, something along those lines. So it moves up a little bit into the B tier due to a seemingly okay personality, and again, it's got nice color scheme, nice big physique, very strong. Last of the bosses, we have the Xi Construct, which to me is a floating alpha construct. The bell, at least, it's huggable, some along those lines, but the actual Xi Construct is just too rigid to me. It's got all those corners. All I feel like it would do if you try to approach it in a loving manner is it would open up the ports on the front and blast you with its laser. That's going to go into the F. Now we have the special monsters, which there's only 4 of them, and they are spawned in conditionally, where you have to have a condition required for the spawning. First up, we have the Healing Core. It's just a big old ball of healing, which, again, someone could find a way to find this attractive. I'm not going to put this in the impossible to love category, because it would be a good comforter. Put it next to your bedside or something like that, and it'll make you feel all nice, warm, and cozy. There's an attractiveness level to that. That's all it has going for it. Otherwise, it's just a big old ball. So it's not going to make it all the way down to the F tier. It's going to make it to the E tier. So up next, we have the Malachite Urchin, which it's going to be an automatic F tier. It's just a big old sea urchin. They don't do anything. They're too spiky. There's no soul. There's nothing to really love. Sorry about it. Next up, we have the only shopkeep of the game. We have the Newt, where they are, a calm, collective creature. Even if you attack them, they don't attack you back ever. They just kind of kick you out of the shop until you come back. I think that is an excellent trait. They got a nice physique. They got a nice color scheme. They would be an excellent partner because they would never raise their voice or get physical or anything like that. Newt, you deserve the honor of making it all the way to the S tier. Lastly, of the special monsters, we have the Void Infester. It's like a face hugger from Alien, is what I always think of. It's one of those things that maybe you throw in a glass cage. You can find some way to find it attractive. Not my taste at all. But again, there is some attractiveness that I'm sure someone would find out there. So it also dies really quickly. So, people like that kind of thing where it's like a short, fast love. So we'll move it into the it's all right. Lastly, we have the 9 special bosses in the game, where they have a requirement, just like the special monsters, to spawn them. First up is the Alloy Worship Unit, where there is nothing different in my mind, except they got a little bit of a scrambled brain compared to that of the Soulless Control Unit. But they do have one line in their lore that just makes it all the way, where it's 11321. Yes, I love you too. They are capable of love. They deserve all the happiness in the world due to that line itself. They are S tier marriage material. They are lovers, and that is what we are about here on this tier list. They are the most attractive. Up next, we have the Artifact Reliquary, where it does nothing except die when 4 keys are thrown into it. It's not even sentient, in my opinion. That deserves an automatic F. Now we have the Aurelionite, where they talk in the lore just like Eren Yeager, saying stuff like, "Know that I am live, know that I am free, know that I am coming for you." They're big, they're burly, they got a warrior-like mentality. People like that kind of thing. They aren't like the most attractive, they're not the least attractive. So they're going to go into the B tier. So up next we have the 4 Twisted Scavengers. They don't really have any defining traits in terms of personality. They all look the same. So we're going to be rating these 4 based on name alone. Alright? First up we have Kip Kip the Gentle. Gentle? Perfect. That's what we like around here. A tier. Up next we have Whip Whip the Wild. A wild person sounds like someone who's a cheater. We don't like that around here. We're going to throw them into the E tier. You can love them, but that is a dangerous game to play. The third one of the Twisted Scavengers, we have Twit Twit the Devotee. Devoted? Again, something we like around here. We're going to throw them into the B tier. And lastly, of the Twisted Scavengers, we have Gura the Lucky. Luck isn't really a defining trait in terms of attractiveness. There's a positive outlook on someone having good luck, so maybe there is some form of attractiveness there. I'm just going to go ahead and throw them into the middle and put them in the C tier. So second to last, we have Mithrix, the legend himself. They have a very interesting backstory of they're a little bit insane because they've been on the moon for so long, mainly due to their brother Providence closing off a portal. So there is an interesting personality. Originally, Mithrix just wanted to kind of meet other godlike beings, but again got stuck on the moon, mainly due to Providence. They seem strong. They like to insult the player, which again, as we talked about earlier, people are into being degraded. Some people, not myself. So you have to put a big ol' asterisk and say, not myself. Some people like that wild card mentality where people act and think on a whim. A lot of people find that attractive. So Mithrix, he's not going to go all the way to the S tier. We're going to put him in the A tier. I love you. And lastly, we have the Voidling themselves, where it's a big old crab-like creature. You got one massive purple eye you can just stare right into. That's a plus. Look into their eyes, into their souls if they have one. They are extremely manipulative in their lore. Some people could probably take some sort of solace in their quote meaning with no words. They'll just take those meanings at face value, not look too deep into it. So Voidling is not impossible to love. We'll throw them into the D tier. And there we have it, folks. We have the final tier list of all Risk of Rain 2 monsters based on their attractiveness. Some are marriage material, some are impossible to love, some make it in the middle. We made it to the end. Now, if you did enjoy the tier list video, let me say what every other YouTuber on the face of the earth says, and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And there will be another tier list coming out sometime in the future, I am sure. Until next time, adios.